Been some pretty eye-opening things about having tadpoles. One thing that has been a bit of a pain is when I decided to add a wildlife pond to my garden, I knew it was going to be fun to watch it develop and see who turned up in the pond, but it has really blown my expectations. So today I'm going to give you a full update on the wildlife pond, what has worked, what hasn't worked, everything from plants, fish, location. It's all going to be in this video, so if you've been thinking about putting a wildlife pond in your garden, this is definitely one to watch. There's a frog. Hey buddy. I can't believe the day I come to do a pond update, I see my first frog of the season. Hey guy. Oh my god, that was so exciting. So first up, the location of the pond. Now, I put this in an existing garden bed so that it creates a little bit of a wildlife corridor, so insects and wildlife can feel safe coming to the pond and it's not out exposed in an open area, and that has worked really well. The little lizards are always darting along here and going off and hiding in the plants. I think the one thing I have noticed is there's not a lot of birds coming to the pond, and I think that's for that reason, that it's oh my god, there's the frog again, you guys. I can't believe that I've been putting off filming this video because it's been really hot, and now the day I come out to film it, there's a little frog in the pond. I'm seriously going to be so distracted for the whole week looking to see if there's any more frogs. He's now, I say he, but who knows. Let me show you. He's in the mint plant, which is something we have to talk about as well. Okay, that is going to be a giant distraction, but back to the video. The location of the pond is in morning sunlight, so it is morning now and the sun streams in here, and then in the afternoon it goes behind the house, which works out really well because it keeps the pond cool during the hottest part of the day in the afternoon, but lets lots of light in the morning. The only problem with this is in winter it gets a lot less sunlight, so I think if I was going to make any tweaks, it would be to give it a little bit more sunlight and then create that shade with plants, but I don't want to move the pond. I love the location, so hi, are you distracting me as well? So yeah, location that gets morning sun or some way that you can protect it from the hot afternoon sun will help. Because the pond is small, it heats up quicker, and because it is in a black liner, that's also going to make it heat up quicker. But because I have got it only in morning sun, I found that the temperature has regulated and stayed the same pretty much the whole time. I've also obviously added in a lot of plants to help give it a little bit of protection and shade. I anticipated that the water level would drop over summer because we get really hot days here in Perth. It's often 40 degrees, so the evaporation on the pond was a concern, and it definitely has done that. I have had to top it up every few days over those really, really hot periods, but the more shade I put in there, the less that's obviously going to do. So I had a lot of water lilies and things that were covering the pond, but since the addition of the tadpoles, the plants have absolutely been hammered. So that is one thing that I will update you on. The tadpoles literally eat anything in the pond if you don't feed them enough. So now, speaking of plants, all the plants that I originally put into the pond I think are still here and still thriving. The only one that's having the big issue is the water lily, because it is getting hammered by the tadpoles eating it, it also doesn't get enough sunlight. So water lilies do need more 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and my pond isn't quite getting that. So I have pushed it into an area where it gets the most sunlight, and it was growing. I haven't got any flowers from it yet, but now it has like half a leaf, so it's not going to flower this season. The other ones in here, the cress, the snails have been eating it, and the tadpoles, but it's vigorous growing, so it's kind of repopulated itself around the edge of the pond. The other one that's really a vigorous grower is this air plant. So it kind of just grows like that with no soil, and it helps oxygenate the water. So this one has done really well. The tadpoles do eat this as well, but it is a little bit hardier and it repopulates really quickly. The one troublesome plant is the chocolate mint, which I did know that this was going to happen, and I could have pruned it back a lot, but I didn't. And so the mint has now like moved into the garden bed itself, and because this is surrounded in bricks, as long as I stop it from going into the grass here, it will be contained to this garden bed. And it's creating a really nice little lush undercover story, so things like little frogs can hide out in there. The sweet potato on the side, this is what this garden was originally before I stuck the pond in here. So the sweet potato grows back every year. It is at its peak at the moment, and so I do need to give it a real good prune back because it is blocking a bit of that morning sun. But it's now gone like around the back of the pond over to the side, so it's offering a whole lot more protection. And I was worried I wasn't going to see any frogs, but luckily frogs like to get a bit of sunlight, so you often see them out in the sun sunbathing. So it is important to have areas where they can do that. So I've got little rocks, I've got the stick running through the middle of the pond so that things can get from one side to the other. Yeah, and I often have seen the frogs hanging out on these rocks on the side here that are close to the water's edge, because when the frogs feel scared, they'll jump straight into the pond. So having areas where they can get some sun, but then also quickly hop on out if they are worried. Other plants here that I've got that are creating a little bit of height, I need to give these a bit of a prune back. It's one thing that has been a bit of a pain is that a lot of these plants blow over in the wind. So I've put rocks in, heavy rocks in the plants, but if you could secure them more by attaching them to the side, or a little bit of wire maybe around it would help, because I'm constantly picking these back up out of the pond when we get wind, which is all the time. My little fountain has seen better days, but a few things about this. This is a solar fountain. It just produces a little fountain when it gets strong sunlight. It doesn't work if there's any shadows on it, so any leaves that are casting shadows, it doesn't really work. It only really works on that full sun, which is good because it gives it a little bit of movement during the hottest part of the day. Oh, it's only early and it's already getting hot. So the quality of the fountain isn't great. It does get stuff growing on it, so I do have to clean it quite often to allow the sun to get in there so it can work. I have seen little fish eggs under here, so I am careful when I clean it to check that. They just look like little jelly sections. So apparently that is good for fish breeding. I think the reason that it works well in my garden is the sun is very intense and we don't have a lot of cloud coverage. I know if you were in a more mild temperature, this probably wouldn't work out that well. And so maybe something more of a permanent solution with power, but I don't have any power out here, so I have just been using the solar. Okay, so let's talk about the fish. So I started off with 3 minnows, the little orange fish, which a lot of people have asked, are they goldfish? No, they are little minnows and they're frog friendly, so they're supposed to not eat the frogs' eggs and not really interfere with the tadpoles. I found that has worked really well. The other great thing about them is that they hang out on the surface a lot, and when you feed them, they come to the surface, so you get to see them a lot more. The other fish that I started off with were the native pygmy fish. Sadly, they didn't last long. So I put them I started this pond in the middle of winter and I literally never saw them again. But from cleaning the pond and moving things around, I knew they were there. And then one day I came out and they were all dead. I found them dead. So I went back to the fish shop where I got them and spoke to them to try and figure out why. Is it because I didn't have enough oxygen in the water or anything like that? And I'm really glad that I did go and speak to them because they actually had the same problem. They had lost a whole lot of their fish, that same week, and so their theory was we had some real spikes in temperature, so it was dropping to really incredible lows and then some spiking back up to highs, and that's what they thought it was. It's just the real sudden drop in temperatures may have caused them to sadly die. So I didn't rebuy any because one, I never saw them, and two, I already had the other 3 fish going strong, so I thought I'd stick with those. And then not long after that, the 3 minnows ended up having babies, and now I have over 12 of the little orange minnows, which is super exciting. And like I said, they laid their eggs underneath the fountain, and so I just feed them with normal fish food every few days, but they also can live off whatever's in the pond as well, so it's not necessary, but I do love feeding them. Okay, so now let's talk about tadpoles and frogs. So these are the motorbike frogs, and they sound like a motorbike taking off or changing gears when they're looking for a mate. A word of warning, it is very loud, so maybe don't get those if you have this outside your bedroom or someone else's bedroom, because they are extremely loud. The tadpoles that I got ended up turning into frogs, and I loved watching them grow. I took a million photos and videos, and then come winter they sort of all disappeared. One I used to see every now and then, and the others I never did. I did happen to see them in the raised garden beds, so they go out into the garden during winter to hibernate. Come this summer, only one frog came back, and that's the one that started doing the motorbike call for a mate. And this went on for a few months. I never saw another frog, only saw the one. So I didn't think that I was going to get tadpoles this year. But then one day I came out and there were hundreds of baby tadpoles in the pond. So he did find a mate, and now I have about 3 different sets of tadpoles, so 3 different stages, some small ones, some medium-sized ones, and obviously ones that are already turning into frogs. So that's been pretty exciting to watch. I have been feeding the tadpoles because they are super, super hungry. They are like little piglets in the pond. And if I don't feed them, that's when they start demolishing my pond plants. So I've been feeding them with slices of cucumber and zucchini. So little things like this, you can see I put this in yesterday and they've nearly demolished the whole thing. So by supplementing their food, that's sort of helped keep my plants alive from them eating them all. There's lots of little entryways in and out of the water, so as they start to transform into frogs, they can get out of the water and they can hang out all around the edges and have safety to jump back into the pond. There has been some pretty eye-opening things about having tadpoles and frogs. So one of them is as they start to turn into a frog, they've still got a little bit of a tail. They need some extra protein to get that final transformation where they turn from maybe mainly vegetarian into eating protein. So what they actually do is they eat other tadpoles. I saw this happen in my first year of having tadpoles, and I was extremely shocked. So you see the little frogs latching onto the tadpoles, and it's horrible to watch. So that is one thing to definitely be aware of. Nature does nature. I try not to get involved. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. And also there is a lot of tadpoles. There is no way that all of these are going to turn into frogs. So, I can't imagine having like literal hundreds of tadpoles. I get a lot of questions about cleaning the pond, and While there's tadpoles in there, they eat all the algae, and so I don't really have to do anything. Well, during the season when there's no tadpoles, I do just come out and check it and pull out any of the dead leaves or the excess algae that grows on the surface. It's pretty clean at the moment, so I can't find a lot. So this is the sort of stuff that grows in the pond, and I just pull it out and put it in the garden as fertilizer. Also in winter, when there's no tadpoles, some of the duckweed can grow over the surface, but at the moment I don't even know if there's even one piece left because the tadpoles have eaten it all. But yeah, that's all I do to clean it, is just take out some of the excess algae, any of the dead leaves that have fallen in, and have a little fountain. It is just a little pond, so it is really easy to maintain and keep it clean. And if you want to see the pond build from start to finish, then I'll pop the link to the first video below so you can check that out.